Imagine walking into a city in the year 1895. The streets are crowded. Horse-drawn carriages move slowly across stone roads. Massive exhibition halls rise in the distance, crowned with enormous shining domes. At night, those buildings glow with thousands of lights, illuminating entire districts. Visitors stare in disbelief. Newspapers call it a miracle of modern engineering. But here's the strange part. Many of those domes, magnificent, complex, and seemingly powerful, were demolished just a few years later. Not because they collapsed, not because they were damaged. They were intentionally removed. And today, most people have no idea they ever existed. This is the story of the free energy domes of the old world structures that some researchers believe were capable of interacting with atmospheric electricity, until they were dismantled after 1900. And once you see the evidence, you'll understand why these buildings had to disappear. Let's start with something historians rarely talk about. In the late 1800s, cities across Europe, Russia, and North America built enormous exhibition complexes, temporary world, as fair-style cities designed to showcase technology and culture. These weren't small events. Entire districts were constructed almost overnight. Gigantic palaces, massive halls, towers, spires, and above all, domes. Huge, perfectly symmetrical domes made from glass, iron, copper, and steel. At the time, visitors described them as breathtaking, but engineers today notice something else. Those domes weren't just beautiful, they were electrically interesting. Now pause for a moment and think about something. When you see a dome, you usually think of architecture, churches, mosques, museums, but in physics, a dome-shaped structure made from conductive materials behaves like something else entirely. It behaves like a collector. Specifically, a collector of atmospheric electrical charge. And that's where things get strange. Across old world cities, many large domed buildings were built with three repeating features. First, a massive curved dome made of conductive metal or metal-framed glass. Second, a tall central spire extending upward into the sky. And third, large stone foundations connected to deep underground basements. Height above, grounding below, conductive structure in between. If you're thinking that sounds suspiciously like a giant electrical system, you're not alone. Engineers studying historical blueprints have pointed out that these domes could theoretically accumulate electrical charge from the atmosphere, especially during storms or high humidity, not lightning. Just the constant electrical tension between the earth and the sky. Small amounts at a time, but continuously. And when that charge builds up across a large conductive surface, something interesting happens. Energy begins to move. Now here's where the story gets even more intriguing. During several world exhibitions in the late 19th century, observers reported enormous buildings illuminated by thousands of lights, entire halls glowing brilliantly, corridors filled with electric lamps. But in some cases, historians struggled to explain where the power came from. Large power stations didn't yet exist in many of those cities. Portable generators of the time were limited, yet photographs show entire complexes glowing at night like modern stadiums. So what powered them? Official history says experimental generators and temporary wiring, and sometimes that's true. But in several documented cases, the scale of illumination seems disproportionate, too large, too early, and almost every one of those glowing buildings shared the same feature. Gigantic domes. Now, let's reset for a moment. Imagine building an enormous structure with conductive metal panels, a towering antenna-like spire, and deep underground grounding systems. Then imagine placing electrical devices inside that structure. What would it resemble? Not a palace, not a museum. It would resemble a giant atmospheric capacitor, a device capable of interacting with the electrical field of the Earth. Which leads us to the most mysterious part of this story, because shortly after many of these domed buildings vanished. Some burned down, others were suddenly declared unsafe. Many were dismantled after exhibitions ended even, though they appeared structurally sound. Newspapers described them as temporary, yet photographs suggest incredible engineering effort went into their construction. Entire marble facades, complex metal frameworks, architectural details that would cost fortunes to recreate today. And yet, within a few years, they were gone, demolished, cleared away, almost as if they were never meant to remain standing for too long. Now here's a question worth asking. If these buildings were just exhibition halls, why build them with such massive conductive domes and electrical-looking structures? Why not simpler designs? Why invest so much engineering effort into buildings destined to be destroyed? Some researchers believe these domes were more than exhibition architecture. They may have been demonstrations of atmospheric energy systems, large-scale experiments designed to capture and distribute electrical charge. Not fuel-based power, not coal, not oil. Energy drawn directly from the environment. If that sounds familiar, it should. Because around the same time period, one of history's most brilliant inventors was exploring a similar concept, Nikola Tesla. Tesla believed electricity could be transmitted wirelessly through the Earth and atmosphere. His famous Wardenclyffe Tower was designed to test exactly that idea, but Tesla's project was shut down before completion. Funding disappeared. The tower was eventually demolished, and the dream of atmospheric electricity faded into the background of history. But what if Tesla wasn't inventing something new? What if he was trying to recreate something that already existed? Now here's the final piece of the puzzle. After the early 1900s, electrical infrastructure around the world shifted dramatically. Instead of decentralized atmospheric systems, power generation moved toward centralized plants, coal plants, hydroelectric dams, large industrial grids. Energy production became concentrated, measurable, and heavily controlled. Domed atmospheric collectors, they disappeared, almost overnight. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's a curious transformation. One energy system fading away just as another begins to dominate. Today, only fragments remain. Some historic domes still stand on government buildings, museums, and old cathedrals, but many have been altered, spikes removed, metal frameworks replaced, conductive elements stripped away. They're now treated as purely decorative architecture, beautiful, but harmless. Yet when storms roll in and lightning flashes across the sky, those domes still sit there silent, metallic, perfectly shaped to interact with the electric atmosphere above us, like forgotten machines waiting to be remembered. If the old world truly built domes capable of harvesting atmospheric energy, it would change how we understand technological history. It would mean our ancestors weren't just builders of beautiful monuments. They were builders of energy architecture, systems hidden in plain sight. And once you start noticing those domes, you begin to see them everywhere. But domes weren't the only structures tied to this mysterious energy network. In the next video, we'll explore the Tartarian towers that reached even higher into the sky. Structures that may have worked together with these domes to pull electricity directly from the atmosphere. And once you see how those towers connect to the domes, the entire system starts to make sense. Watch the next video.